So I've been trying to grind up some K drive standing. I started thinking about something that DE Scott had said in a couple dev streams ago, where he was wanting to nerf the itzal archwing. Now I know that he had a couple of drinks, so he probably wasn't in the clearest state of mind. But that got me to start thinking about why he would say that. And I believe it's because the itzal is so dominant in its mobility that there really is no other reason. And so he either wants to nerf it or he wants to buff all the other archwings and K drives to be just as good as the itzal. I, however, think that's a horrible issue because you get into a very slippery slope of, well, if this, then that. And what I mean by that is, so the itzal is the best archwing, let's say, for mobility and just getting around. Right now I'm using the amesha just to prove a point.
Works like this.
So let's say I'm playing and my goal is to grind it exclusively cave drive standing through these races. Then I'm gonna want a archwing or a K drive that gets me from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Because I'm not here just to lollygag and explore the world on the K drive. I'm here to get the standing, to get all the other ranks, and so on, and I'm an idiot for that. But anyway, the idea is that the archwing allows you to spend the least amount of time traveling to do what it is you actually want to do. And so, but then you get into this weird situation, and this happens with every single video game that ever has a meta. Why use X when I can use Y? Well, that fully depends on what you are trying to do. If you're trying to farm K-Drive stain, for example, yeah, I want the highest mobility possible so then I can do as many of these races as quickly as possible. But let's say if Trials were back. If Trials were back in the game, then all of a sudden I would want the amesha because it is by far the tankiest out of all the archwings. So, but in that case, why would I ever want to use the itzal? Well, the reason I'd want to use the itzal in that case is for speed running. However, since Trials are gone and I am not a speedrunner and never have been, there really was no reason and is no reason for me to ever use the itzal in that mode. And now we're at the point where this is more or less the exact same scenario. Simply put, there is no reason, there's no value in using anything other than the itzal for open worlds. And even in regular archwing, there really is no danger present in the current archwing missions where you would ever need the amesha. Why would I ever want to use the amesha when I have the itzal, which can do large amounts of area damage reliably and gather huge amount of resources all around me and all I have to do is push one button. So I don't, but if you get into the idea, the mindset that Scott had about buffing all the other archwings to the same level as the itzal and able to do the exact same thing, then eventually, okay, so we make all the archwings as mobile as the itzal. Okay, then what happens? Well, then the only reason that you have to use the itzal is for its 3, for the farming ability. So if the meta stays around the farming ability, and we go by the same logic, then we buff all the other archwings to have the same level of farming. But then it gets even worse. Because, okay, so now all the warframe, or all the archwings, can now have the same mobility and the same ability to gather resources. So why would you ever use the itzal when you can use the amesha, which can do everything the itzal can, but never die? And so it just keeps on compounding to the point where eventually you can have a whole bunch of different archwings or warframes or weapons or anything, and they're all going to be exactly the same. And that's just a horrible place to go. Instead of us, or instead of DE trying to say, okay, we're going to buff everything or nerf something until it's in line with everything else, rather, we need to be given a better incentive to use something else. So like right there, that took me a fraction of the time and I wasn't even really paying attention. And I assure you I could get far more of these done in a far shorter time than with the amesha. That doesn't mean that the itzal's broken, it just means that for this particular mode, for exactly for what I'm doing, the amesha is a better choice. And if I was doing trials, then the amesha would be the better choice than the itzal. And you know, this goes on to even mission types too, where, okay, yeah, I could use a super stealthy brain and complete a spy mission without being detected at all. But my incentive to do that is extremely minor compared to if I took an Equinox or a Saren and I just killed everything I could as rapidly as possible. The only incentive I have for stealth is extra affinity. But at the same time, I'll get far more affinity if I just take a map clearer and kill everything on my way. So what's the answer? Is the answer to nerf room clearing, or to make all stealth frames have the same capabilities as everything else? No, it's to give us more reason to use other pieces of equipment in warframes. Now I'm gonna finish this up. See, I don't, and see, it kind of makes me worried whenever I see DE releasing more game modes that really only reward getting high amounts of kills per second. Even the newest game mode, Disruption, you're not rewarded for crowd controlling enemies. In fact, they make it much harder to crowd control enemies because of all the ways to disrupt abilities. So why would you ever want to use a Vauban when you can use a Saren? Sure, Vauban can lock down a lot more enemies, but Saren can completely take them out. And when you kill enemies, you get resources and affinity. What do you get when you crowd control enemies? You get nothing. The only case in which I ever remember crowd controlling enemies being worth it was in Law of Retribution. And that's because there's a lot of times that were more time sensitive. And if you just got a bad team or you just had a bad string of luck, then you get to the point where the enemies would just scale so ridiculously that the game would get incredibly hard. And I do not think that should be what we strive for. I don't think that we should only be rewarding kills per second. And so I would love it if Deve would release more bosses, more game modes, less like Eidolons or Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, but more modes where they actually challenge what you know and your skills and experience of playing Warframe. Not everything needs to be beginner level or entry level friendly. I just don't think that's the smartest move whatsoever. But yeah, just wanted to say that, and also just want to try some other settings on OBS, so hopefully it'll look better.